Wem Dominator Mk3. This one needs no introduction. You've seen me do 3 of these on the channel. This is another one that I bought. The speaker in it is a Celestian greenback and was found floating around it in the bottom because someone had thrown it into the back of a van so hard that it had completely ripped all the screws out. But fortunately the speaker's not damaged. So we're going to, usual thing with this, we're going to recap it, but we're going to do some mods on this one as well. So stick around if you like watching me do these, and we'll get it out of its case. So we've got this Dominator on the bench, and before we start any work on it, we're going to fire it up, because with the speaker being ripped out of the cabinet, we've not actually run this amp yet. So we're going to put it on the Variac and run it up just to make sure it works okay. Just switch the power switch on, and we'll just put a few volts in it, and I'm going to get a meter. 60 volts. Amp meter's fine. So just put it up to 130, 212 volts on there. That should begin to drop. We'll go up to 150 volts. Yep, tubes are beginning to conduct, voltage is dropping. And we've got sound, look at that. What a microphonic tube. That's looking good. So we know it runs. I've got 159 volts on the Variac, and that's as far as I'm going to go up because of these capacitors. As long as I know it runs. Right, that's that done. So now we'll just test the voltage and make sure it's all gone before we start tinkering. There we go, the voltage is gone. So we're going to test these preamp tubes in the tube tester, and the output tubes as well. We'll do the preamp tubes first. Those have got a bit warm, we'll let them cool down. So these preamp tubes are TNX, and TNX was a company that distributed the manufacturer's tubes. So these could be anything, and you kind of take your look with these, but looking at those, I don't know whether that's a Mullard code on the bottom there. I'm going to investigate that, because if it is, that means that then these are Mullards, and they could well be. They could be Mullards, they could be anything really, because these merely took other people's tubes, manufacturers' tubes, and put their own stamp on them. So I'm going to investigate those. They may well be Mullards, those. These test brilliant as well, like new. So that's good. Let's have these output tubes out and we'll test these. Let's have a look at these as well. So we've got an Edicron. Go JG0 or something. Oh, very strange. And what's this one? Oh, now he's got that nondescript look about him. So he could be anything. So this Edicron tube tested about 90% on the meter, so that's a brilliant tube. But I'm afraid our nondescript friend here, he tested in the question mark part of the, if you've seen these tube testers before, you've got your red, which is bad, and then you've got your question mark, which means it's borderline, and then green, anything in the green's good. So I'm afraid for him it's all over. So we need to find some tubes for this, or at least another one to go with that Edicron. Right, so I've sorted the tubes out, tested those. So it's the usual deal with these Wems. You've seen this before. We replace these two capacitors, we replace the diodes, the drop-in resistor, and then we go through and check if there's anything else on the board. We check all the resistors, see that they're in tolerance. But we're going to mod one of these channels. I'm going to show you the schematic. We're going to mod this off later once we've got these caps in and got it something like up and running. Then we're going to see about these mods. So this is the capacitor. This feeds the preamp stage, and you can see he looks very poorly, and that's why I didn't put too much voltage on it when I tested it. He's done, and September 73. So we've definitely had as money's worth there. Now I've just spotted something on this amplifier. We'll just hone in and we'll look at this, see if we can look at this mains switch, this power switch here. Just about see it. I'm just going to move the amp out because this tripod won't reach. So there's a bit of bad soldering there, you can see. Not bad. That one's terrible. That one's been off. You can see it's been burnt, and it's coal soldered, and the wires not been tightened up and tinned before they put it on, so there's strands everywhere, and made a good job of that, but at least they could have done was cut that off. So we're going to address that. Let's just have a feel of this switch. So yeah, that one's okay. If they've got a lot of play in them, then I remove them. So I have a bit of a thing about them not being safe when they've got a lot of play in them. So there we go. The interesting cable tie there, that's to stop the cable pulling through. We'll just tie a knot in it. That's what they did in those days. I'm not sure what that is. Probably something he put on there to hide his bad soldering, and then it came off. Who knows? But we can sort that out. It's no big deal, is it? And I've also just spotted that this pot's been changed here. Now, just been looking at this, and it was facing down like that, and I'm thinking to myself, why not put that so the terminal's at the top and then bring the wires up neat to it? But what's happened is this pot has turned round, and you can see, and the reason for that is that if we look, we can just get over the top there and look at this pot. We'll just shift that cable out of the way, move that cable. So if we look down there, you can see, and you can't see it now because I turned it that, let's go back. You can see a pip on there. There's like a little piece of metal, maybe just about make it out. If you look down there, look, just about see it. And what those are for is if you have, say, a chassis and then a front panel separate apart, sometimes you'll see a hole in that chassis, and that little pip there fits through to stop the pot ever spinning round. But when you mounted them to a flat panel like this with no hole, you should break that off. You just break it off with the pliers. They've not broken that off, so the pot's now not in straight, but also you just can't tighten it up properly, and so that's got spun round there, and you can see that's all just loose. Right, we're just going to clean this this chassis up, clean the board a bit so that looks a bit better, and just give this a wipe down. That looks a bit like somebody's pigeons been nesting in here. So we're going to clean this up, make it look really nice. Right, so we've got this capacitor fitted, and we've got this one fitted as well, so that's all done. We've got the 1.5k drop-in resistor, and we've got the diodes there, the heavy duty diodes. So my attention, I've cleaned up all this chassis, by the way, so that's all nice and clean. Just have a, can't really have much of a look because when I lift this up it'll block the camera's view, but oh, there we go, look, so you can see that's that bit away, that's cleaned. So we've cleaned the PC board. Now we're turning his attention to this pot. So you can see this has had the shaft bitten. We wouldn't call that cut, would we? So this was mounted with the terminals down, it's the wrong wire as well to be using. It's single core, it's not flexible, it's just not the right thing. This pot also needs mounting upwards, not downwards, because you're forcing down on the terminals. So we're going to sort all that out. It is the right value pot though, it is 250k, so we're going to take that out, clean it all up, and then we have got some of this wire here, which we're going to use, and this is, see that this is nice and flexible. So we're going to sort that one out, and then we've got the mains power switch, which is hiding there. There's that bit of, just that bit of soldering to sort, tidy up there, that cable. You can't quite see it probably, but no, but we looked at it earlier. And then this amp is ready to be modded, and we're going to mod one channel of this amp, and we'll be looking at the schematic before we do that. So we also forgot, when I was taking this amp to bits, we've got these self-tapping screws which had been forced into there, because that's obviously been drilled out, and they got these on the end underneath, and they just won't do. Also, they only put 2 in, and if you look at the board you can see there's a slight bow in it, because what's probably happened is it's been supported at either end, and it's got, as it's got hot and cooled down, it's gradually bowed this board a little bit. So we need 3, and by the look at the way they've drilled those out, they're now going to have to be M4s, so we need 3 M4 bolts. And I'm looking if they've drilled the other hole. Let's have a look if they've drilled the other hole. So you can see there, that's definitely been drilled. That one looks like it's been drilled too, but they didn't bother putting the bolt in, or they only had 2 at the finish when they did it. So we need to find some M4 bolts to go in there to make all that nice again. And here's what I mean about this pip on the pot. Most of you will have seen these before. You can just see it on there like that, and we snap those off because we're putting this to a flat surface. We don't have a hole for that to go through. So now I've got rid of that, the pot should mount properly. Right, we've sorted out the main switch, power switch there, you can see. So he's all sorted out and done, tidied up. We've got the fly leads in for the pot, and they just need tinning, and then we put the pot on. That'll be the last thing we do when we get the board in. So we're going to focus on these mods now, and let me just put this light on, and we're going to mod this channel on this side. I've tested all the plate resistors in this amp, and every one of them is on the money. And as you know, I normally change plate resistors in amplifiers when they're old, but Lee is at the shops having this as his own personal amplifier, so I'm going to leave them in. Should we get any problems, then it's not a big deal. We know where this amp is, and it's no big deal just to have it back and change them. So we're going to leave those because they spot on. So let's have a look at what we're going to turn this channel into, and I'm going to have to turn some lights out to do this because it usually makes this flicker, and I need to drop the camera back. Right, so we've got this schematic. Let me just try and go out a bit more so we can see it, but that's it. So we're going to mod this channel on this side. Let's pop that in that box, and the reason for that is because we're going to utilize this bright switch that we had in there, which is absolutely useless, and we're going to use that to switch in this cathode bypass capacitor, which will go on here, switch it in and out. The reason for that is because this is the normal channel, which is identical to the vibrato channel on the Deluxe Reverb, except for that capacitor. So I thought, well, we'll make that switchable. Then at least we've got a choice of both channels there. I mean, this is not going to sound exactly like a Deluxe Reverb. It's just a guide of something to different, and hopefully it'll sound good, and there'll be a variation between these 2 channels. So let's just look through what's different. So I'll just look in there. So we've got 68k grid stoppers on there. I can tell you on this, the 56, and that ain't going to make a massive difference, but we'll change them anyway. 1.5k cathode bypass capacitor, that's still the same, but on this channel we haven't got a bypass capacitor on the Wem, so we put in a 25 microfarad. The tone stack 250 picofarad, well, that's the same, and this is the tone stack here, so 250 picofarad is the same. The slope resistor, I do believe, slope resistor, I do believe is the same. We've got a 0.1, and I think that's a 0.1, and then we've got a 0.047, but we've got on the Wem 0.33, 33 nanofarad, and then we've got a 10 microfarad coming out the second stage, and on here we've got 47 nanofarad 0.047. So they're going to be the changes on this amp. Right, so just looking on the bottom of this board, and words fail me. I've had to get a ton of flux. They were almost, well, they were joined. I had to try and get that off, scrape that away as best, and I have got most of that off now. There's various, these are wisps of solder. Somebody's, looks like they've, and I don't quite know, that must just be luck. That says 10, but again, that must be just, that's just actual solder on there. What they've been doing. And then we've got this, which that track they must have thought was broken. So again, instead of just soldering that across and making it neat, so I don't quite know what's been going on in here, but a bit of a go at it up here. And obviously that's really blown up, which is why these all look massive. They virtually look nothing, and we've just got to get all that off from around there. You can see those two there looking a bit iffy as well there, so they need addressing certainly. And we need to check around on here and make sure there's no dry joints. One there looks a bit possible iffy, but other than that, so again, there has been some work done here, because obviously we could see the pot, which if we just pull back, where I've just put the fly leads in there, sorry, the other there, I put the fly leads in, but you can see that even there, this, I mean, why? The only thing I can think is somebody's been around this board, you know, touching it up, and they've just, well, I don't know, they've been doing it with a wire brush, because there's just strands of solder everywhere. Bizarre, not seen that before. But well, there we go. That explains the big piece of wire that they've got in there. They've obviously damaged that trace, and you can see that's pretty bad, so we'll tidy that up as well. I've just took the cathode bypass capacitor out on the output stage, and that's where they'd link that to the ground. Right, I've just been having a look around, getting a bit confused for a minute there, and I've just realised what's happened. So I've traced this out to do this mod, so we're going to put both channels in each side of the phase inverter, looking for the 470k resistor, and someone has swapped it at some time. Suddenly looked and realised I traced it through, and I thought, that's not an original resistor. That is 360k, and we need a 470, so we need to swap that and then do the mod. So that just caught me out there for a couple of minutes. Right, we've got this ready for a test. I've got this box wedged in here because obviously they've damaged all the stanchions that were in there, bodging those screws in, so I've got to sort that out later. And I'll just tidy that, it's got my ties up. The pot is in there now. I've got the pot in, we've done all the mods, we've got the switch rigged up with the cathode bypass cap on or off on this first stage, and I think that's pretty much it. Actually, I think that should have been on the second stage. Yes, it should, but never mind, it can be the other way around. I wouldn't have thought it'll make a huge difference. We need to put some tubes in this. We need to find a tube for it. I have found a tube. Found a Mazda tube that's pretty new, so I'm gonna, this Edicron tests like new, so I'm gonna pop that in, and I'm just going to run this through the tester, this Mazda tube. Right, the Mazda tube, I only tested about 70 on the tube tester. So I've just found another one. I think this is a Pinnacle, and this tested at nearly 90. Well, it did just pip 90, so both of these pipped 90, so they should be a nice, oops, sorry, so they should be a nice pair of tubes. Now we just need to put the preamp tubes in, because we tested those and we know they were bob on. And just something else to sort out on this before we finish off is this output transformer. You can see we've got bits of solder stuck to that, and as you can see, Mr. Laycross has been again, so we need to just address that as well, although it seems to be on fairly well, but I think we'll redo those. We've got all the tubes in. We're going to get this up on the Variac and test our handiwork. So we're all ready to roll. Let's start firing it up. So we'll put a bit of a voltage on it. Yes, there we go. We just go up on the Variac. 74 volts. There we go, 130 volts on the Variac. So we just need to watch that voltage and see if it begins to drop. Let's just see, we're on 208. Yes, that's beginning to drop now. Can't hear any sound yet, but then all I can hear is that aeroplane. I've got the door open, it's very hot today. Definitely. Oh dear. I've wired that pot up back to front. Because I'm a bit of a plank. Never mind, we'll just swap the wires around on it. I think we've got a bit of grounding issues on there, because I think we need a nut on that volume. My word, that channel's got some gain. Yes, let's just stick one on there as well. The channel's very quiet, but it seems a bit low, so I might have some issues on there. This channel, on the other hand, is got a lot more go in it. Ah, and there's the yeah, that bit of a, oh dear. Yes, we might have a bit too much gain on there with that. I don't know yet till we get put back together, because of course it's not got any solid grounding. It's got some grounding, but the pots and things aren't properly screwed in, because it was just a case of running this up to test it, see if we got signal before we put it all together and then have to take it all to bits again. So we've got 151 on the Variac, so let's just blast up to full tilt. There we go. Now we've got full power. We've lost that bit of a humming thing that was going on there. Yeah, that channel's fine. Let's just turn that down, flick that in. Oh, that's working better. Oh no, it's not. think it's that switch, you know. I think that switch might be a bit... the bright switch. We need to spray some gumption into that, don't we? Yes, it is. It's faulty, that switch. You know, it just needs some gumption in it, probably. They're usually a bit dusty, those. But yeah, that seems to be running okay. I mean, we've not got a guitar through it or anything. See if we've got any. See if we've got signal from the inputs. Of course, the reason I've got the pot back front is because I've just followed the wires in line, and of course it's upside down to the others, and that's why I've got it back front. What a fool to not spot that. Bit of a schoolboy error, that one, really. But never mind. Yeah, we've got signal there. Let's try this one. Oh yes, we've got plenty of signal there. So that channel is quite souped up with those mods. So what's left to do on this amplifier now? Well, we've got to sort those fixings out properly there, because they've bodged those screws in, and we need to sort that out, and there wasn't one in the middle. We need to clean that switch. We probably just need a bit of gumption in that volume as well on that side. The others are fine. So we'll just spray a bit more into that. And we need to sort out this output transformer thing going on there. The bits of solder on the cables, and I say Mr. Laycross's work. And I think we'll be pretty much good to go with this. And of course I've got to swap the pot around, but we won't mention that. So yes, that's pretty much there, and then we can get this amp in and have a listen. We've actually got to fit the speaker back in, of course, because that was removed by the delivery man. Playing patty cake with it. And we need to check the bias, don't we? So let's have a bit of a look at the bias while we've the meters. So let's just check what we've got on here. There we go. Check the voltages down the line as well, I think, while we're at it. So 298 on, that was on the screen. We've got 319. Of course, this is cathode bias, so we'll be testing plate to cathode. We're just having a general look. Then here we've got 252, and this plate resistor here. We got on the, oh dear, 170. Yeah, about 170 there. So that all looks healthy. All looks pretty healthy. Now I have done that mod, so both channels are going into one side of the phase inverter, and we've bought the other side to ground with a 100 nanofarad capacitor, because if we don't, it gets a bit noisy. So we're going to check this. Let's check the volts drop across the bias resistor. 8.9, so I'm near enough, 9 volts. And I actually did, I know that's about right, because I've done that many of these, and I did test that resistor, and it was virtually 100 ohms, 99 point something. So that should give us our milliamps. So we need to find the calculator, and here it is, the rather large sports calculator, which we've taped off the brand just to keep YouTube sweet, so we don't get in any trouble. Of course, other brands are available, as other calculators are also available, much smaller than this one. So 9 volts, divide by 100, 90 milliamps divided by 2 equals 45 milliamps. Take 5% for the screens, 42 milliamps. Let's see what plate to cathode voltage we have. Plate to cathode. So I have to think about this, because it's rather difficult to get. We can go from there, and we'll go from there. 299 volts. 12.7. Oof, that's a bit high. 12.7. So those tubes are drawing a fair bit of current. So back down to this thing where, oh, you don't need to bias cathode bias amps when you put new tubes in. You do, because they're drawing more voltage. I dare say if I put the old one back in that wasn't very good, it wouldn't be drawing near that. So I think I might leave that. It's a little over, it's 0.7 over. I think I'll leave that. It'll be okay. These tubes are pushed much harder than that, so that'll be fine for the bias. What we need to do now is put this thing back together and give it a run. Right, I've got the screws in now, the stanchions on there, got the spring washers on there, nice and tight. I've got these on. I've sorted out the transformer. We've wrapped those round now and soldered them on. And then I've just spotted this here. Let me just get the camera in there. And yes, I think that needs a little looking at. And you can see they've burnt the socket there with the iron. So they've had that out. So we need to have a look at that. That one looks a bit cold on there on the live. So we just need to sort that. I didn't spot that till I was putting these back in. The other one's fine. Right, I've got this all put back together, and I'm going to get in the case now. In its case, fit the speaker, and then we're going to give this a listen. Right, I've got this Dominator chassis back in its cabinet. We've got the Celestion. It's actually a black back, this Celestion, not a green back. Or the cap that goes over the magnet's black anyway, so I think they call those black backs. Now that's the normal channel that's not had any modification. Quite a lot of bass in that channel. Take some out. Channel. So this is the channel we've modded. And you can see that's a much thicker tone. And it's also a much louder channel than the other one. Let's just see how much louder. So they're both on number 1. I don't know though. My word. And that's with only the one bypass capacitor, and that's with both of them. Wow, that's loud. That's a really thick tone. A beast, and that's on number 1, and that is really loud. Whoa! Flicking the other bypass capacitor. Oh dear, that's a beast. So we didn't put a master volume on this one, because Lee said he thought that these amps were not loud enough to really need one, and he can just crank these up enough to get the sound that he wants. But I'm afraid on this channel now, I don't think that's the case anymore. That is loud, boy. As I'm in my living room, I can't really turn that up much more, or the whole street will be able to hear it. there we go, that's the Wem Dominator. It's actually the Power Musette, this one, but basically they're just the same. And I think the Power Musette was aimed at keyboards, if I remember, organs and so forth. But it's the same circuit. Some had different speakers in, some had 15-inch speakers in. Dominator Bass Mark 1 had a different speaker, had a 15-inch speaker, one of those Celestion Spiderbacks. So the Musette and the Wem Dominator Mk3 and the Wem Dominator Bass Mark 1 all look exactly the same, except they've got a different name on it. The circuit is the same in all of them, but some just had different speakers. So there we go. So we've modded that. We'll take it down to the shop and let Lee have a play through it, see if he likes it. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching, and you all take good care of yourselves, and I will see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.